guys, it's Jessica from Peace Love Books, and today I'm here with my August mid-month wrap-up. It's the 15th I'm filming this. I've only read 9 books. That might seem like a lot to some people. It's not really a lot for me, though the last 4 days I was in New York on vacation with my sister, so I did not have a lot of time to read, but I still managed to read 9 books. A lot of it was through audio, and I will say, like, nothing was... Okay, 1 book I gave 5 stars. Maybe 2. I just have been reading okay books. Nothing has been like blowing me away, but that's okay. I have 9 done, and I did 2 vlogs, one exclusive to Patreon and my channel members, and then another that should be up. I don't know, because I'm home for a day. I came home from New York yesterday. I drove 8 hours to come home, and tomorrow at 5 a.m. I have to leave for the airport to go to California. So I'm going to be in California for a week. I don't know how much reading I'm going to be doing in this month, but I'm going to talk to you about the 9 that I read. So first off, for my Patreon exclusive video, they voted for me to read Lotus by Jennifer Hartman, which I read at the end of July, and then I read Further to Fall by Catherine Cowles. This is my last book to read by her. I've read her entire backlist now, and this one is her first published book, and it's definitely a first book. I gave this one 3 stars. It was fine, but she has grown so much as a writer and really found her voice and her genre, and this is not really like at all what her brand is now. Does have some romantic suspense, but the heroine is a teacher and her best friend is like a musician, and she falls for this MMA fighter, and there's a lot of jealousy involved, which is not my favorite, and she gets jealous of the girls that he's always around. They do fall like pretty hard for each other and then break up, and he does something that I'm just did not like, and I was like, I don't know how forgivable this is. I feel like he should have groveled a lot more for what he did. So 3 stars for this one. Wasn't my favorite. There is suspense, like I said, near the end though, where someone is like coming after her, but overall the pacing was like not my favorite, and I would have loved so much more to see a lot of the side characters more, which Catherine does so well now in like a lot of her recent releases, but this one the side characters are just kind of like there, especially like her best friend. I would have loved to see more of them, so I'm glad I finished her backlist, but not my favorite from her. Then I read Weak Side by S.J. Silvis. I started this and I was loving it. It is a roommate's romance where her like first and last name get swapped, so she is placed in a room with a hockey player in her dorm, and he is like the hotshot hockey player of the school, and he wants to be like serious though and focus on the NHL, and they end up rooming together, and she's been dating this guy for a very long time, and it's pretty obvious from the start that this guy's cheating on her, and you know he cheats on her because in the synopsis it talks about how she wants to fake date her roommate to get back at her boyfriend, but we still did not get the fake dating until like 60% into here, and we're waiting for her to catch her boyfriend cheating. There's all these clues. The hero knows it. She won't believe the hero, and I'm just like, why are we spending 60% of this book waiting for this to happen? And then the fake dating happens, but it's over very quickly, so I didn't love that this was like marketed as a fake dating romance, because like the fake dating didn't really happen for that long, and it took forever to get there, and it was just okay. And I feel like we didn't really get to learn more about the heroine. Like, she was in dance because of her scholarship, but she didn't want to do it professionally, and then it's like, well, what do you want to do with your life? And I feel like we just didn't really get to know her that well, and I just like didn't love it by the end, which was sad. So I gave it 3.5 stars. I think I went in with super high expectations because I know so many people loved it. I feel like I could really enjoy more by this author. It's just this one, the pacing with what it was marketed as just really threw me off, and I wanted a little bit more from things, so I give it 3.5 stars. I wanted to love it more. Then I listened to the audiobook of The Fiancé Farce by Alexandra Bellafleur. This is a sapphic fake engagement romance or fake marriage. They do want to go through with the marriage. It's very bookish. The one heroine works at a bookstore, and her dad passed away and left it to her stepmom, and her stepmom wants to sell it all, and she's horrified. Like, it's her life and her love. She wants to keep this bookshop. She lives above it, and so she also has told her family that she is dating someone, and they think that it is the cover model of one of her books that also like her family kind of knows, because like her step family is like intertwined with this other family, and they all meet at a wedding, and so they say, oh, like, that's your girlfriend, like, introduce us to her. And she is this very wealthy woman who is hard to describe. She has a lot of things happening in her life, I will say. She gets to take over her family's publishing business if she gets married, and if not, I think it's sold off. And so she sees this as an opportunity to have a fiance, and she's like, actually, we're engaged, and then wants to have a fake marriage with her so that she can get her publishing company, and then she'll give her money, the other heroine money, to buy the bookstore. So they're both happy and they get things out of it. They obviously start falling in love with each other. I did really enjoy this one. I think in the middle it did drag a bit. I feel like with a lot of traditionally published books, they drag a lot in the middle, and that's how this felt for me. But I gave it 4 stars. I really liked how they brought out these different sides of each other and were really falling for each other, but didn't know how to like tell each other because they were like pretending the whole time, and also having to like go through with their perspective like dreams, where the one really wanted to keep the publishing house and the one really wanted to keep her bookstore. So I liked it. Lots of family drama too. The one heroine was also dealing with having to be around a guy who was pretty awful to her in high school, so they were dealing with that as well. So this one, 4 stars, very cute fake engagement romance. I just wanted a little bit more. Then I read Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. I found this at Half Price Books and I was very excited because it's back ordered like everywhere. It is on KU, but I wanted to read it physically, and this one I gave 2 stars. This, I think I had way different expectations of what I should have. People were like, it's better than Fourth Wing. Read it if you love Fourth Wing. And this one, the fantasy is not at all comparable to Fourth Wing whatsoever, and there's barely any fantasy in it. And I didn't even like the romance. So the heroine, she is living with her mother. Her brother was sent off to war, and it's like a magical war between gods, which we did not get to see. And she's working for a newspaper, and she gets the opportunity to go on like the front lines and report, and she decides to do that because something happens, and she wants to upstage like her nemesis at the newspaper office, and he is the hero of the story. And there is like a little bit of magic, but like just a little bit, and this felt so much like a World War I, World War II fiction, and I don't like war books like that, like battle and like waiting on the front lines and like waiting at home for the soldiers to come home. Like, I just find that kind of boring, especially if there's no actual fantasy involved. I just felt like the book dragged a lot. The romance was fine, but it felt very insta love and progressed like really quickly for me, and so I didn't care. The ending was interesting, but I like almost DNF'd it, but I was like, maybe the ending is what everyone loves. It didn't save the book for me. It was just fine. We got a little bit more fantasy at the end, but overall I just don't like the time period that this was set in, and there's nothing that really like added to it that would make it entertaining for me. So I gave this 2 stars. I did not enjoy my reading experience of this, and I think it's partly because I had very high expectations going in and expected a different story than what I got, because the magic is like, the houses kind of have magic. I don't want to spoil anything. I don't know how to explain it, but yeah. It was just okay. It was just not my kind of fantasy. The next book I read on audio was That Summer Feeling by Bridget Morrissey. This one's a sapphic, like, adult sleepaway camp romance, and I've talked about it a couple times already. I love this one. This one was a 5-star read for me. This one, our heroine is divorced, and her sister were determined to have, like, really great love lives because their parents hate each other and have like a really bad marriage. So she thought like her and her husband were meant to be. They got divorced, and she is kind of lost. They go to this summer camp together, and it's like a really sweet summer camp where there's lots of siblings there, and they're just adults there to have fun and let loose. And her roommate is someone she is very into, and she thinks though that she is destined to be with her roommate's brother. The roommate really likes her, but she kind of sees that she's into her brother, so she tries to set her up with him, and it's pretty obvious though that they're really into each other instead, and so it's their romance falling in love, all with like camp shenanigans. So there's like fun parties and karaoke, there's like scavenger hunts, there are, I think at one point there was like a big balloon fight, and it was a lot of fun, and I had so much fun reading this. I loved the romance so much, and I really loved the family aspect as well, because both heroines dealt with like their prospective families and their relationships with them, and it was just so sweet and just like the perfect summer read. So good on audio. I really enjoyed reading this one. Then I read Second Down Darling by Lex Martin. I don't know what I want to give this. I think it's more like a 4.5-star read. I did really enjoy this one. It is an angsty romance where the heroine's sister sleeps with her best friend and gets pregnant. So the heroine has been in love with her best friend since like freshman year of high school, and she's finally senior year about to tell him how she feels, and her sister shows up. He doesn't know her because she was off, like, she's a child star where she was on this show for like sick kids, and now she's been like reality show after reality show, and so she wasn't around. She comes home, goes to a party, sleeps with her sister's best friend, and gets pregnant. And so the heroine is devastated, but she sticks around, she helps them out, but it's just beginning to be too much because she hears them together all the time in those kinds of situations, and she's FaceTiming her sister, and he walks in naked in the background, and she's like, I cannot put myself through this anymore, this emotional turmoil. Even though she loves taking care of her nephew, she is like, I gotta go. So she cuts off all communication, transfers schools, and does not see him for 2 years, and he transfers to her college unknowingly for football, and they are reconnected, and she's a photography student, and she is taking like photos for a calendar for a shelter she volunteers at for dogs, and he shows up and she is like, I don't want anything to do with you, but they have to be thrown together a lot and slowly unravel what happened. And there is a lot of like side character drama with the sister. The sister's an awful person and wants to like sabotage everything she does, and her sister's currently on a new reality show where she's dragging them both into her drama. So if you don't like other person, it's not other woman drama, but it's just like a vindictive character set out to like ruin them, that does get a little annoying. So that's why I didn't give it a full 5 stars, because that was the conflict like near the end of the book. But I loved the angst where she's in love with her like nephew's father, and even the sister was like, what are you gonna say when like what he asked what to call you when you're really his aunt, but like now you're his stepmom. And so that like gets to be a sticky situation, but I love their dynamic. I would have also loved a little bit more of the son and like his personality. I feel like that wasn't shown through as much as I would have liked, but overall a really good single parent sports romance, and I had fun reading it. My favorite read of the month so far is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Pawson. This one is a 5-star read. This was so good. This one, our heroine inherits this apartment from her grandmother who passed away, and it's a magical apartment where it will slip you 7 years in the past, and she remembers her grandmother telling her the story but didn't like fully believe until it happened to her. She slipped 7 years in the past and meets the hero, who is a wannabe chef, and he's currently trying to get like jobs at restaurants, and he is living there 7 years in the past, and they end up falling really hard for each other in the past. And in the current present, she is trying to get a book deal with him, and she knows they have a past, but she doesn't fully know it. He does, because she hasn't like finished living it yet, but he has 7 years ago. And I really love that timeline, but also there's just so much to the story that just pulls you in again and again, where you're like, okay, like they've met, but then you're like, oh my gosh, but like what else is gonna happen? Like what else did she do in the past that she hasn't done yet that he knows? And he's such a different person now with such a different perspective on life than when he was before, of this like bright-eyed, excited guy wanting to cook and be a chef, and now this guy that she just doesn't fully recognize, but there's also that spark between them. And I loved it so much. I love her books, and they do deal with grief a lot. She did lose her aunt, and she has to explore that grief as well. The Dead Romantics, her previous book, also heavily dealt with grief, so know that going in, but this one was so good. I love it so much, and I cannot wait to see what else she has to come, because I am quickly falling in love with everything she writes. Then on my drive yesterday, I read completely from beginning to end Do I Know You by Emily Wibberley and Austin Siegmund Broca. This one is a marriage and trouble romance, and I think because I read it all in one go, I really liked it, because there wasn't a point for me to really get like pulled out of the story and feel like it dragged. I was just reading it from beginning to end. And so this one, our hero and heroine are married, and it starts out in a very awkward car ride to a resort that they're staying at. It's not, I don't know if you would call it a resort. It's just like a kind of like getaway place where there's also like different programming going on, I guess. I don't know how to explain it, but his mom did gift them this day for the 5th year anniversary, and it's a very awkward car ride because they just don't know how to like talk to each other anymore, and they're just like not knowing each other anymore. They don't really talk a lot, and they're not sure how to make their marriage work. And so they get there, and there were 2 rooms accidentally booked, and she says, why don't we keep them separate? And he's like, you want separate rooms for anniversary? And so then she meets him at dinner, and he is with this other guy, and he had told him like, oh, I'm not here with my wife because like my wife wasn't staying in my room. And so she walks up, and he's like, oh hey, like this is Graham. And she's like, hi, I'm Eliza, nice to meet you. So they like act like they don't know each other, and really finding that spark in their relationship again. I really loved their just like exploration of getting to know each other and like dancing around their real issues, and her really not wanting to admit their real issues and having to finally come to terms and talk about it near the end, and finding just that love for each other again, and having to deal with the fact that they got married really young and all these people doubted them, and being scared of like actually not working out like people thought they wouldn't. So I actually really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars. It felt kind of like a sleepaway camp kind of thing too, where they were like at this place with all these new people, and the hero was helping this other guy try to date this girl there, and I just had a lot of fun listening to it. It was a really good look at a relationship and trying to fix it when it's so hard to communicate with one another. So definitely check this out if that sounds interesting. I really enjoyed the audio. And then I reread Legacy of Shadows by Tessa Hale. Book 3 comes out in a couple weeks, and I really wanted to refresh my memory, and it was a very quick read. And not only did I listen to that last audiobook on the entire drive when I was driving, I read the ebook almost entirely on the drive as well, because I drove 4 hours, and then I was a passenger for 4 hours. We switched off every 2 hours, so I had a lot of time on my hands, and I finished Legacy of Shadows as well. Still sticking to my 4-star rating, but I'm so happy I read it because because I forgot like certain dynamics among the heroes. It's a paranormal why choose. The heroine is from a very abusive home, and her childhood best friend shows up to whisk her away to his mansion with his 3 best friends, and then another best friend like shows up. So there's 5 heroes, and there's a secret about her identity, and they are fated mates. So I really enjoyed it. I really like seeing how protective the heroes are and their dynamics with her, because there's 2 that are really, really damaged, and I remember certain things that happened in book 2 between 2 of them who are brothers. So it's just a really good romance, and I just was happy to read it again. It's very quick, very fun to escape into, so highly recommend checking the series out because book 3 comes out next month, and I can't wait to read it. And those are the books that I read so far in August. Very short wrap up for me. Normally these are like 20+ minutes, but not this one. Let me know if you've read any of these and what your thoughts are and what you've read so far this month. I would love to hear, and that's all I have. As always, thank you so much for watching and have a good day. Bye.